How exciting. Okay, here we go. So this is my favorite meditation class, the question and answer. This is the standard disclaimer that I give is the one that Steve Brown used to give, which is this is my opinion after the experience that I have. This is not set in stone. These are not the commandments of meditation or of life. This is just like from what I think, what I believe right now, and I totally reserve the right to change it. If you ask me the same questions 10 years from now, I will give you a different answer. If I give you the same answer, unless it's like how many positions are in a front kick, but if I give you the same answer about something deep 10 years from now, it means that I haven't been doing my job. So ask away. It can be anything about meditation or life or whatever. I've got a couple that people have already submitted. You have one, ma'am? Ooh.
I'll try to make it exciting.
Try to make it, dumb it down for the rest of us.
I'll try. But it's basically based on the theme of the book, Power versus Force, about levels of consciousness and vibration. And when we're in the presence of high level consciousness and vibration, such as in the dojo or in the seafood, naturally
The highest level.
our vibration rises. But how do you, even when you get to that level, it's called a spiritual struggle because sometimes you can be exposed to low level energies that brings you down. So at what point do you raise your energy so that it doesn't affect you? Because
I'll do my best with that. I think if you add any more, it's going to be too much for me. So we've got different levels of vibration and energies, and if you're trying to raise your consciousness to anywhere above where you're at now, and yet you still have a tendency to get dragged down by other levels of consciousness and other energies and vibrations. And I certainly believe that there is a way, and that there are people who have done this, where you can become enlightened, where you can get to a certain level and a certain understanding where you're a fundamentally different person, and it's kind of like you're existing on a different level from where you were and where other people are. And we want to, if you think of it like that, like I'm on another level, then you're not there, right? Because you can't think of yourself as being better than other people. That's not enlightenment. But if you recognize that everyone Steve Brown used to say, we're souls having an experience as a human being. We're not human beings that have a soul. It's flipped. And everybody in their experience that they're having as being a human being is going to slip up, because when you're in that, you're in the body, you're in the ego, that's just what is happening. That's what's supposed to happen. So when you can recognize that this idiot driving down the freeway who cuts you off and flips you off is a soul having a human experience, they are, they are the spark of the divine. They are that higher self that's just masked behind this aggression, rage, whatever it is they're dealing with. Then it becomes easier for that which is, higher consciousness, the bigger self in you, to deal with that person on that level. And it's something that I would say enlightenment on some level, in some way, is like a permanent realization of that. It's such a strong experience that I haven't had yet, because I certainly get pissed off when somebody cuts me off on the freeway. But the time that it takes me to remember that this person is just having a day is less than it used to be for me. And what I usually do that helps me the most is going back to that, recognizing that, hey, I've had that same kind of experience that person is having. I've had one of those days. I've been in a rush. And it allows me to separate the person, especially who they are on a deep level, from the acts that they're taking from the emotional state that they're in that moment. So I think on a logical, conscious level, you have to be able to do that. And it's certainly a step in the right direction. And then there are other things that really help us, stay more in tune with our higher selves. And when you are completely in line with that, when you are identifying as your higher self, you can only identify with other people's higher selves. And the things that we do to get there and stay there for longer, or be there more often, meditation, reading inspirational things, prayer, whatever works for you to connect to something higher, being in the dojo, being around people with the higher state of consciousness, with the raised consciousness. All of that is great. So you think of coming to the dojo as like recharging your batteries. You go back out into the world and it's like, okay, I can kind of deal with this a little bit better because I've got that recharge of being in a higher consciousness. I'm around people who are kind of pushing that, helping bring that to me, and in a place where every time I'm in this place, that's what I do. You just want to make more places and more people like that. And there are certainly people who are going to drag you down, and you have to either be prepared for that and deal with it the best way possible, or stop spending so much time with them, or stop spending time with them at all. Environment is stronger than will. And if you're spending all of your time and you're always in this place that drags you down out of the level of consciousness that you want to be in, and you're unable to transcend that, then you're kind of kidding yourself if you think that you're just going to make it through. You have to put yourself in the environment that you choose. And it might be one of your own making. It might be one of someone else's or several other people's making. And it might be just people that you're deciding to surround yourself with. But pay attention to that. Good?
Next question. So my goal is how do you be immune to that, because sometimes you have no choice, and sometimes it can just be as innocuous as being exposed to rap music, which you don't want to be.
We're getting real political here now. The world is filled with things that are going to, shake you and knock you off of that balanced place where you are. For some people, it's rap music. For some people, it's being cut off on the freeway. If somebody's cutting you off while playing rap music, then you got a serious issue. But immunity to that is enlightenment. Immunity to that is like I'm just totally. Either I lucked out and in that moment I was really with my higher self, or I'm just always identifying as my higher self. So it's not something that can happen easily after you're already shaken. Okay, now I'm going to come back to that place that I want to be. You can do it, and this is part of what we try to do. Part of our practice is we kind of put ourselves in those situations where our ego is really engaged, and then we come back to the breath and we do our best. But you're still going to be shaken. So that's not immunity. That's I got knocked and then I brought it back. So those tools and those things to do. But until you get to a place where you are just always there, or there much more often, then you're always going to feel like you're being thrown off. And that's life. That's what's supposed to happen. The more you get tossed around, the more you kind of grow from that and figure out what works for you and start doing it. Other question? Dina.
Okay, so I meditate, and on a good day, I meditate in the morning and at night. And
Me too. That is a good day. What I usually find is on the days where I meditate in the morning and night is a good day.
And those meditations are as different as day and night.
Yes, they are.
The ones in the morning are fantastic.
Uh-huh.
No problems there. But my meditations at night are bad. And consistently, I've been doing this for like 5 years now, pretty fair amount of time, and I cannot get the amount of time it takes me to settle my brain down less than 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes, sometimes it's longer, but it's never less than 20 minutes that I stop having like imaginary arguments in my head. So if I only have 20 minutes, is that a waste of time? If what happens to me is that sometimes the timer goes off and it's like no time has passed and I've been having imaginary arguments in my head for the entire 20 minutes and I go, oh! And I want to keep meditating because I'm like, I can get it this time. But that's probably bad to reset the timer and go.
Oh no, you want to keep meditating, you keep meditating, that's totally fine.
Oh, so that's okay?
Yeah, meditate for as long as you want to.
But if I wait for 20 minutes and it's a total fail. So
Yeah, that part's not good.
No.
But the part where you want to keep meditating is great. I think I got it. So what you're describing is meditation. This is normal. You wake up in the morning, if you're like me, you wake up with a smile on your face, you toss, the covers off, and you just rise up like, this is my day. I'm going to just do everything exactly right, and I love life, and I go and sit to meditate, and there's, nothing has proven me wrong so far. So the meditation is really nice, and you don't have that much stuff rolling around in your head. But by the end of the day, something has probably proven you wrong, and now you're like, you go into that meditation. It's like you were going 100 miles an hour, and then you crash into a wall, and you're trying to make that be a peaceful experience. It's very difficult. So a very common and important thing that people do is to kind of wind down into their meditation by doing different things. And you can make this pretty much whatever you want, as long as it's not looking at your phone or the TV or having an argument. It's something that will quiet your mind and give you fewer thoughts. It's something like lighting incense or praying or stretching, or I take a shower. For me, what works for me, I work out all day long, and if I don't shower before I go to bed, it's disgusting. So I shower before I go to bed, and I usually go straight from the shower to meditation. And that is part of my kind of winding down, because I'm not, in the shower talking to people or watching TV or whatever. I'm just in the shower. And there's like a solid 10-15 minute period of time there where I'm kind of winding down with less sensory input. And if that's not what you do, figure out something that works where you are just literally in a place with more silence, less sensory input. And it's probably not going to be as nice as it was to just wake up in the morning and meditate, but it'll be closer to that. And you've got the added problem that a lot of us do, where is, in the morning, I would say maybe, I don't know what the statistics are for this, but let's say it's 50-50. Some of us wake up and we're refreshed and ready to go, but by the nighttime you're tired. And other people are waking up in the morning, and that is a terrible time for them to meditate because they're still super tired and they haven't organized their life correctly, so they're not sleeping the right way, whatever. But that's kind of outside of what we're talking about. You just want to take whatever steps you need to get that to be more and more quiet. Now, what it could include or be limited to, I sit and then I start doing a breathing exercise, and I'm literally just counting breaths or counting seconds, like I'm counting to 10 for my inhale, I'm counting to 10 for my exhale, which is thought, so it's not meditation, but it is still a much more limited amount of thought going on. That's a really nice way to slip down into meditation too. So it's a lot easier for most people to go from this moving 100 miles an hour to counting to meditation than it is 100 miles an hour, crash into meditation and hope that it goes well. It's not going to go so well for you. But if you meditate for 20 minutes and right at the end you're feeling really good, you should certainly spend a couple more minutes in that state. And then yes, the goal is to not have it take 20 minutes to get there. So do all that other stuff that I said.
Okay, so if meditation is like a jar full of scooped river bottom.
Yeah, scoop the pond scum up and then set it on the table and it all settles down to the bottom.
Is time spent meditating, once the jar has completely become clear water, 20 minutes of that, is that more valuable than the 20 minutes it takes to get to the clear water? So is the clearing more or less valuable than the clear?
You're asking me questions that I don't know for sure that I have the answer to. This is a really great thing to look at. I would say that it serves different purposes. The act of clearing your mind is more of the, like a conscious honing of your focus and concentration, which is great and important. And then the other is more like that time that's spent where I have already cleared my mind is, I think, more valuable, like spiritually speaking. I'm in that place where I'm more like communing with what is deeper, beyond the ego. But I would say that they're both very valuable, and you should have both. And you might find yourself at some point in your meditation practice where that clearing of your mind happens like that, very easy. I'm not there yet. It doesn't sound like you're there yet, but maybe someday. And so it's all just that, cream at the very top where I've got everything is clear and not necessarily easy, but you're spending much more time in that clear state. Great. But don't think that this 20 minutes is a waste of time. It is serving its own purpose. And if that is what meditation is right now, that is perfect. I'm going to come to one of these questions that I got submitted to me. Can you discuss facing hard topics and conversations with yourself or with other people? So it's kind of related, it can be related to what I was talking about before with Leah's question. But I think that, again, if you can be connected with that which is, your higher self, that which is deeper and beyond the ego, then it's easier to connect with other people. And in that state, there is nothing that's difficult. There's no conversation that you cannot have, because it's not a function of the ego anymore. It's a function of, just letting things flow through you. That's a very difficult thing to do and to be in with another person. And especially if it's a difficult conversation or an argument, and it's something where you have a tendency to kind of feel like, that energy is not where I want it to be. My consciousness is being dragged down, maybe by this person, maybe just by the situation that I'm in, or both. But if you can enter into a difficult conversation, both with yourself and with other people, from that clear state, maybe it's after a meditation, maybe you just decide like, okay, I know I'm about to start thinking about this, or I know I'm about to start having this conversation. I'm going to take a few minutes to just clear my mind and get to a better place. Then the conversation is going to go much better. There are tools that I would say are really helpful if you're finding that is difficult or impossible to be a soul having a conversation with another soul, where you're in it and you can sense this is pushing power against power, force against force, ego against ego. You can just go back to the breath in that moment. You can be totally brutally honest with yourself first and then with the other person, and that sounds like, okay, I realize what's happening here. I'm realizing my part in it. I'm realizing my responsibility. I use this example all the time with my mom, who I always used to enter into any conversation with thinking my mom's about to be nagging me, my mom is about to be telling me what she thinks I should be doing differently with my life. And I realized one day that was something that I dragged into every conversation that was not necessarily always there. And I finally went, oh, it was in the middle of a conversation with my mom where I was feeling that way, and I realized that's me doing that. That's not my mom. And so I said, Mom, I got it. You are trying to, show me how much you love me, and you are your act of love is trying to make sure that I have the best possible life, that I am taken care of, that I'm taking care of myself, and everything that you say, is in this vein. It's not because you don't like me. It's not because you want me to have a negative experience of you or of my life. It's because this is really what you want. I got there from recognizing that the thoughts that were going on in my head were of my own invention, and just getting really honest with myself totally changed that dynamic forever. And I've been able to do that with other people as well, where I recognize that, those difficult things, those combative conversations that you deal with, it takes two people to fight. I ask this in the kids' class all the time. How many people does it take to fight? 2, sir. And if the other person wants to fight, but you don't, there's no fight. In a physical confrontation, you can just run away and that's it. There's no fight. And in life, sometimes you might need to actually just run away and go to a different room and settle yourself down and deal with it. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got in dealing with somebody who was irate from Seafood Brown, I told him I had this situation with a student's mom who, this kid came in late and sat down. This was 10 years ago. Needed to go to the bathroom, and so whoever was teaching the class, it was me or Seafood Donahue. We said, "All right, but hurry up. Go to the bathroom and get back out here." And the kid was, for whatever reason, really mortified by this, being called out. And then the mom came in the next day, and I think, never once in my life encountered a more angry person in any situation. She was spitting mad, and she was yelling at the top of her lungs. And so I was just and I said, I'm sorry. And I asked Seafood Brown about it, and he said, I got the perfect solution for you. You say, this is something that I really want to give my full attention to. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Because right now I can't give it my full attention. So let's have this conversation, whether you want me to call you or you come in or whatever. Let's really deal with this in the best possible way. They will not come back in the same state that they were in that day. They're going to come back kind of yeah, so I was really upset yesterday. Can we talk about that? And that's really great, but it also gives you a chance to get yourself in the best possible state to deal with this. And you should not use that time from now when you created this pause until the time when you're actually going to deal with it. You should not use that time to get yourself all riled up. She's pissed off. Let me talk about all the reasons that I should be pissed off. That's normally what we do. You use that time to settle, recognize where that person is coming from, and get yourself to the best possible place to deal with it, and then just have an honest conversation where you are actually listening to what's happening over there. I'm running real short on time. I've got something even more to talk about with that, but somebody later on asked me about the idea of recreating. So this is kind of tangentially related, but when you're having a conversation with somebody and you really want to hear them and understand what they're saying. Somebody just asked me about that, and if you use the word recreating, I'm going to know exactly what you're talking about fast. So I got another one here. When you've lost motivation, what are some ways of finding it again? And this is a common question that I get, and it becomes more difficult the longer that you are in the dojo or doing something that is important to you, because people sign up and they have their kind of honeymoon phase of this is exciting and everything's new and wow, I love it. And then it kind of gets older, and the same thing happens in romantic relationships and with anything new that you're kind of taking on. You kind of end up down in this place where you realize that this is not as fun and exciting as it used to be. And part of it is just this. and this is the way that life works, and this is the way that everything within life works. There is nothing, no activity, person that you will be around or anything that will just always get better exactly like this. There will always be ups and downs. And we want to recognize that if we're doing our job the best, that if you zoom out far enough, you'll see that the ups and downs are still kind of heading in the positive direction. But there's still ups and downs, and this is always the way that it's going to be. So, C.F. Brown would also call this the peaks, the valleys, and the plateaus. And the plateaus are the worst because this is when you feel stuck. At least when it's going down, you can tell, like, I know I'm in this cycle, this downward spiral, this thing is going to come back up someday. When you're plateaued, again, I think that this is just another way of looking at this, because it's always, in some way, even in a tiny sense, getting better or getting worse. But you're stuck. You're in a rut. And so on some level, you want to recognize that this too shall pass. Nothing stays the same. It is the nature of the universe and life and us as human beings that wherever we are right now will change. For the better or for the worse, but it's going to change. It is a foregone conclusion. Now that is a logical kind of function of your brain that can be helpful, but you also, that's not the same thing as like getting motivation. Motivation is more of an emotional thing. It's more of something that I would say you can get motivation from it within yourself. And I've talked about this many times in the past. My kind of cop-out answer, which is the best answer, is you shouldn't need motivation. You decide what you're going to do, and you do it no matter what. You take motivation out of the equation. I wake up every day and I meditate no matter what. I wake up and I brush my teeth no matter what. It's not like I have to have my teeth falling out to get the motivation to start brushing them. I've just decided that this is what I'm going to do, and I do it. And having motivation is nice, and it makes things a little bit easier, doesn't it? So kind of going full circle back to the first question is depending on where you are spending your time, who you're spending your time with, and the types of activities that you're doing are going to give you motivation or sap that motivation from you. If you're spending time around people who are really pumped about the thing that you want to be motivated for, then that's going to help you. And vice versa. If you're spending time around people who are just like, you're at work and you're spending all of your time talking to people who are disgruntled and unhappy with their jobs, that's going to lead you to feel the same way. And if you are spending your time around people who are just really on top of it and super excited, then that is it's contagious, it's infectious, it brings you up there. If you're reading things that are really motivational, that's going to be helpful. I recognize recently that I sometimes like to read things that are more like entertaining than uplifting, and I try to give myself a good mix of these, because if I'm only reading motivational stuff, it kind of gets boring sometimes. So then I let myself read something that's just like, some kind of fiction, sci-fi, something that is just pure entertainment. But then I know if I just do this, my mind is always in this place of like, hey, I'm out like in space shooting people, and people are dying and blowing up and all that, and I don't want my consciousness to always be there. So I try to, then whatever it is that I'm using for entertainment even, I want to try to be more uplifting and motivational. So it's, on some level, it's just kind of a simple math problem. The more time that I spend over here, this is like what we were talking about in internal retreat this last retreat, is I've got the two dogs. I've got the dog that is representative of my negative thoughts and energy, and I've got the dog that's representative of my positive thoughts and energy, and every day they fight. That fight every day happens within us. It's always a push and pull, and whichever one wins, whichever dog wins, is the one that I feed the most. So if I'm feeding myself with that positivity, with that motivation, then that's where I'm going to be. If I'm feeding myself negativity, spending my time being dragged down, then that's where I'm going to be. And that's the math problem. That's the equation. If I'm adding more up here, then that tips the scale, and that's where I want to be. And there's another level of this, which I talked about a couple weeks ago, which is like, if I'm adding stuff here, and then I start to be upset about it, and I start, judging myself and all that, that's just adding more to this. So I'll add a little bit here, and then I'll recognize, oops, I'm adding to the negative side of this. I'm taking away my motivation. I'm taking away the positivity that I want. I just make myself do more of this stuff or have more of these thoughts. I have one here, I make myself have 3 over here. And there are going to be a lot of these that you don't necessarily notice throughout the day, but every time you do, you put yourself over here. And that's a very basic, simple way of thinking about it, is you want more motivation, you do more motivational stuff, you spend your time around motivational people. And you have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Because this works for somebody else doesn't mean that has to work for you. And if you are expecting to always be motivated and always to feel like doing the things that you are supposed to do, then you're kidding yourself. So let go of that attachment to motivation. When you have it, great. When you can create that state for yourself, great. And when you can't, just forget about it and just keep going in that direction that you set yourself on. I really love to think of this in this simple way. I make decisions, important decisions, when I'm in that high state of consciousness. And when I'm down here and I'm not feeling like it, I do stuff that I made up my mind I was going to do when I'm up here, right? This one's setting the rules. This one is deciding. This one is not always feeling like it, but it still sticks to what I decided to do when I was in that higher state. And we are well past time, so we're going to sit and meditate. And that's another great example. You don't always feel like meditating, but you decided at some point when you were connected to something deeper and higher and better, and so you stick to it. So we're going to do it tonight. Sit comfortably.